We spend our lives trying to control the world outside, yet the true battlefield lies within our own minds.
Chaos inside the mind breeds stress and suffering, while an orderly inner state allows calm even when storms rage all around. We plan, we scheme, we try to bend circumstances to our will, but the harder we grip, the more control slips away. Real self-control is not force or suppression, it is the alignment of thought, emotion, and action into one coherent flow. Awareness is the doorway. The simple act of noticing a thought before it hijacks your behavior opens the path to choice.
In that pause, uncomfortable, fragile, fleeting, you reclaim the power to respond instead of react.
Life's unpredictability will always strike, but regulating the inner response dissolves much of the unnecessary suffering. Letting go of what lies beyond your influence is not weakness, it is the liberation of energy and the restoration of stability. Fear of failure, judgment, or loss drives us into rigid control, yet this very rigidity breeds instability. Choosing the most effective immediate response, instead of blaming circumstances, shifts suffering into clarity and strength. Control is not won in grand breakthroughs but cultivated daily through awareness, like drops of water carving stone. Moments of irritation or hurried reaction reveal where control has silently slipped away, offering clues to reclaim it.
Every reaction is a mirror of the inner world. See it clearly, and you sharpen your authority over yourself.
Perception, not luck or talent, decides whether the same burden feels overwhelming or manageable. Inner discipline replaces chaotic impulses, nurturing confidence and a quiet trust in one's own strength. Control fluctuates, lapses occur, but mindful acknowledgement of these moments builds resilience instead of despair. When the inner foundation is stable, the experience of life itself becomes lighter, clearer, and more manageable. The simple practice of pausing and choosing mindfully transforms ordinary moments into powerful, self-sustaining victories.
Master your inner world first, and suddenly, the outer world no longer feels like an enemy, but a reflection of your strength. Imagine standing at the edge of a storm, where emotions swirl like furious winds, yet you hold the power to pause.
That pause is not weakness, it is the hidden lever that turns chaos into clarity. When you name the storm, frustration, fear, disappointment, you create distance, as if stepping back from a raging fire instead of being consumed by it. Thoughts, like passing clouds, drift endlessly across the sky of the mind, but mistaking them for eternal truths traps us in anxiety. What if you questioned each thought? Is it fact? Is it useful? Is it within my control? Suddenly the storm loses its grip. Overthinking is the mind's survival trick, spinning endless scenarios to fill uncertainty, yet it drains the soul like a leaking vessel. Attention is the fuel of thought, withdraw it, and the fire dims without force or suppression. Emotions, too, are not enemies to be slain but signals to be acknowledged, like warning lights on the dashboard of the body. Suppress them and tension builds, allow them to exist without feeding them, and calmness quietly takes root. Discipline, then, is not punishment but consistency, the art of keeping promises to yourself even when motivation fades. Each small act, a walk, a pause before scrolling, a single work session, becomes a brick in the fortress of self-trust. Without structure, the mind drifts like a ship without anchor. Routines provide the harbor where storms cannot reach. True freedom is not chasing every impulse but choosing stability, like a tree rooted deep while winds howl above. Habits born of discipline reduce decision fatigue, freeing the mind's bandwidth for creativity and vision. Focus is the gatekeeper of self-control, scatter it, and emotions rush in, guard it, and clarity reigns. Every disciplined return after a lapse is resilience in motion, proving that strength is not perfection but persistence. Over time, the repeated pause, the steady follow-through, reshapes identity into someone unshakable, someone reliable. Emotion and discipline are twin pillars, each strengthens the other, creating a synergy that dissolves inner conflict.
And so, mastering the inner world is not about domination but harmony. Control yourself, and life itself bends toward calm. Discipline begins not with grand gestures, but with the quiet decision to pause before reacting, a pause that reshapes the entire trajectory of a life.
Each small act of restraint is like laying a brick in the fortress of identity, slowly transforming you into someone who always follows through. Resilience is not measured by never failing, but by how quickly you return to discipline after stumbling. The speed of recovery defines strength. Over time, consistent discipline dissolves anxiety like salt in water, leaving behind a calm clarity that feels unshakable. The pause, practiced again and again, becomes a quiet strength that snowballs, growing larger and more unstoppable with each repetition. Emotion and discipline are twin flames, each feeds the other, creating a synergy that keeps the mind clear even in storms. Procrastination, however, is the silent thief of authority, eroding your command over life by tempting you to avoid what truly matters. Every distraction is not harmless, it is a surrender, a handing over of your inner kingdom to forces outside yourself. Focus is the gatekeeper of thought. When guarded, chaos is filtered out and only clarity enters. Multitasking may look efficient, but it slices the threads of discipline, scattering your energy into fragments. Presence is the bedrock of control. Without it, every action becomes diluted, every choice weakened. True focus is not about bursts of extreme concentration, but about steady, uninterrupted attention that endures like a river carving stone. Environment shapes discipline more than sheer willpower. Silencing notifications, decluttering space, and setting boundaries create effortless control. When friction is reduced, attention flows naturally, like water through a smooth channel, free of turbulence. Holmes himself curated his mind like a small attic, stocking only useful tools, refusing to clutter it with trivia. A lesson in intentional focus. His discipline was not rigid, but precise, walking the alleys, experimenting in the lab, observing the smallest habits, all sharpening his clarity. Even a simple chemical test for blood became a metaphor. With discipline and focus, truth emerges clearly, preventing chaos and injustice. In the end, mastering the inner world is not about perfection, but about reclaiming authority over the self, moment by moment.
Control yourself and life itself bends, not through force, but through the quiet power of disciplined presence. Imagine your mind as a small attic, where every object placed inside either sharpens your life or clutters it beyond repair.
Sherlock Holmes believed that knowledge must be curated like fine tools, because irrelevant trivia can suffocate the very insights that matter most. He trained his brain not to be a warehouse of random facts, but a laboratory of precision, where every detail served a purpose. Holmes could glance at a man's fingernails, the soil on his boots, or the rhythm of his gait, and reconstruct entire chapters of his life.
What others dismissed as trivial, like the scent of tobacco or a scroll of paper, Holmes treated as keys unlocking hidden worlds.
His philosophy was simple yet radical: control your inner world of attention, and you control the outer world of outcomes. Holmes' daily routine, early sleep, chemical experiments, constant activity, was not eccentricity, but discipline designed to sharpen the blade of perception. He showed that mastery across disciplines, chemistry, geology, anatomy, even music, was not about breadth for its own sake, but about depth that fuels deduction.
Holmes called it the science of observation, where the smallest cue could become the loudest truth.
He contrasted his method with speculative philosophy, insisting that ideas without evidence are castles built on sand. Holmes' genius lay not in mystical intuition, but in relentless pattern recognition, linking soil color to geography, posture to psychology, and scars to history. He believed that the book of life was written in everyday gestures, waiting for the trained eye to read its pages.
Yet Holmes warned, deduction without humility can collapse when data is ambiguous, demanding both intuition and evidence.
His encounters with clients, from detectives to rail attendants, proved that this skill was universal, transferable across every social stratum. Holmes rationalized that deep familiarity with crime history and human behavior armed him against cases where facts seemed inconclusive. He mocked literary figures who claimed insight without proof, arguing that only evidence-based reasoning could stand the test of reality.
The narrator's own transformation, awakening from a subdued routine into Holmes' vibrant world, reminds us that mastering the inner world can resurrect a dormant life.
Holmes' story is not just about solving crimes, it is a philosophy of living: control yourself, and you control life.
Imagine a world where every hidden thought flickers across a face like lightning in a midnight storm.
Sherlock Holmes believed that the book of life could be read not in libraries but in the subtle tremors of human behavior. He argued that true mastery comes not from abstract theories but from disciplined practice, watching, listening, and decoding the invisible. Holmes once recognized a man's past in Afghanistan simply by the marks on his skin, a reminder that details whisper louder than words. But erase the mystery. If micro-expressions flash faster than thought, can we ever truly hide from ourselves? These fleeting cues, anger, fear, admiration, are the soul's fingerprints, appearing before the mask of speech can be raised. Body language becomes a silent orchestra, where mirroring signals harmony and distant signals fracture. A hand smoothing a sleeve, a palm rubbing nervously, these are pacifying gestures, tiny rituals of the anxious heart. Yet context is king. A crossed arm may be a fortress in conflict, or simply a shield against the cold. Holmes warned against the arrogance of pure theory, insisting that evidence must dance with observation to reveal truth. Reading people, then, is not manipulation but empathy, a science of connection that turns strangers into stories. The emotional temperature of a room can be felt before a word is spoken, like heat rising from unseen embers. Tone of voice, the tremor in a syllable, often betrays more than the polished sentences we craft. Holmes' encounters, from detectives to rail attendants, prove that these skills transcend class, culture, and circumstance. To master your inner world is to master the art of seeing lies, hidden pain, admiration, and truth beneath silence. It is a discipline of patience, a philosophy of presence, and a practice of turning uncertainty into clarity. And so the question lingers: if we can read the world so deeply, what might we discover when we finally read ourselves?
Imagine walking into a room where no words have yet been spoken, but the air already feels charged with tension or warmth.
This invisible atmosphere is the emotional temperature, sensed through body language long before language itself arrives. A crossed arm might scream defensiveness in a heated debate, yet in a chilly room it whispers only comfort. Context is the hidden key. Mastering body language is not about snap judgments, but about slowing down, observing deeply, and connecting honestly with others. Tone, pitch, and pacing form the secret music of speech, coloring words with emotions that often betray hidden truths.
A flat tone can feel like emotional frost, while warmth in the voice radiates trust and openness. But what happens when tone and words collide?
Pitch rises under stress, voices strain, and hurried speech betrays anxiety, yet a slow, deliberate pace may conceal withheld truths. Volume 2 becomes a confession, anger thunders loudly, shame whispers softly, secrecy hides in hushed tones. Strategic pauses can radiate control, but hesitant silences often reveal a mind scrambling to fabricate coherence.
Even the smallest crack in a voice, a sudden throat clear, or the overuse of can betray the strain of deception.
Liars often distance themselves from their own words, avoiding eye and drowning truth in excessive detail or formal language. Micro-expressions, those fleeting flashes across the face, are the lightning strikes of authenticity, impossible to fully suppress. True alignment across voice, face, and body is rare and powerful, while incongruence feels like a subtle alarm bell ringing in the soul.
Deception is a juggling act, fabrication, suppression, monitoring, all straining the mind until leakage spills into gestures and tone.
Experienced deceivers may hold steady eye contact, but the first clue is often the disconnect between words and the Buddhist whispers. In negotiation, interviews, or even family conversations, recognizing congruence or inconsistency sharpens decision-making like a blade honed to perfection. This is emotional echolocation, listening not just to words, but to the rhythm of feelings echoing beneath them.
To master your inner world is to master this hidden symphony, and only then does life itself bend to your control. Imagine sitting across from someone whose smile flickers just a little too quickly. What truth hides behind that fleeting mask?
Micro-expressions, those lightning-fast flashes of emotion, are the whispers of the soul that betray what words try to conceal. When someone insists, in being honest, the very need to say it often signals doubt gnawing at the edges of their truth. A sudden shift in posture, arms crossed, leaning back, creating distance, can be the Buddhist instinctive fortress against exposure. The art of observation is not accusation but alignment, noticing when emotion and language dance in harmony, or stumble apart. Like sonar in the ocean, emotional echolocation lets us hear the rhythm beneath the words, the pulse of sincerity or deceit. But beware nervousness, introversion, even cultural habits can mimic deception, and only context reveals the true signal. Truth is steady, like a river flowing in one direction, lies twist and turn, adding details that shift with every retelling. Cognitive interviewing, asking for events in reverse or through senses, forces the mind to juggle too much, and falsehoods collapse. To master lie detection is to shield oneself from manipulation, but also to cultivate integrity by recognizing distress signals within. Personality is the hidden architecture of behavior, the blueprint that explains why someone stands firm or bends under pressure. The Big Five traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, are the compass points of human nature. High openness is a painter's brush on a blank canvas, while low openness is the craftsman's steady hand on familiar tools. Conscientiousness is the clockmaker's precision, while its absence is the jazz musician's improvisation. Extroversion shines like a spotlight on stage, introversion whispers like a candle in a quiet room. Agreeableness is the warm handshake of peace, while low agreeableness is the sharp edge of truth unsoftened. Neuroticism is the storm that rattles the windows, while calm resilience is the mountain unmoved by the wind. Situational awareness reminds us, the room itself speaks, power dynamics, fatigue, hunger, crowd energy, all sculpt behavior.
And so the mystery remains: if we can master the signals of others, can we not first master the signals within ourselves? In every room, unseen currents of emotion ripple beneath the surface, shaping who speaks, who follows, and who fades into silence.
A leader may not be the loudest voice, but the one whose presence subtly bends the behavior of others like gravity pulling planets. Yet fatigue, hunger, or the hour of the day can twist perception, making us misjudge character when biology is the true puppeteer.
In high-stakes moments, masks fall away and the hidden truths of a person's inner world are revealed like cracks in porcelain.
Situational awareness begins not with the individual, but with the atmosphere. Scan the room, feel the dominant emotion, and only then look into eyes. True emotional intelligence is not decoding signals like a detective, but entering the pulse of another's heart until their joy or pain becomes yours.
Life is not a battlefield of scarcity, but a game governed by spiritual laws of give and receive, a dance of energy exchanged endlessly.
Focused imagination is the architect of reality. Distorted images are termites gnawing at the foundation of destiny. The subconscious mind is a record keeper, storing every word and thought, waiting for us to overwrite false scripts with declarations of truth. Words are not mere sounds, they are vibrations that sculpt health, wealth, and relationships like chisels shaping stone.
Fear is faith inverted, a dark prayer that manifests lack, while faith itself is the golden key unlocking abundance.
Affirmations and visualizations are not childish rituals, but tools of reprogramming, rewriting the subconscious code that governs destiny. Stories abound: a woman acting enriched before receiving money, another buying blankets before finding her apartment, each symbolic act bending reality toward belief.
Even ancient kings digging ditches in barren deserts knew, prepare as if abundance is coming, and the universe rushes to fill the void.
The conscious, subconscious, and superconscious are not separate chambers, but a trinity, each layer whispering, arguing, and harmonizing to shape our fate. To master the inner world is to seize the reins of this trinity, directing imagination, speech, and faith until life itself obeys.
Imagine standing in a desert where kings once dug ditches, preparing for water that had not yet appeared.
This act of faith, of preparing for abundance in the face of emptiness, is the essence of mastering your inner world. One woman, facing scarcity in housing, bought blankets as if she already owned her dream apartment, and soon, against all odds, the apartment appeared. Another, needing 3,000, chose gratitude over fear, and a cousin unexpectedly delivered the exact sum. What is the hidden law here? That acting as if, believing as if, creates a magnetic pull for reality to follow.
Yet doubt floods the subconscious like a storm, and only affirmations of truth and gratitude can calm the raging waters.
When someone else sees you as successful, you cannot fail. Their vision becomes a mirror that strengthens your own. Jesus spoke of agreement on earth unlocking heaven, perhaps meaning that shared belief multiplies divine possibility. But beware, repeating "I always miss a car" writes failure into your personal law, while affirming success rewrites destiny. Superstitions, rabbit feet, horseshoes, lose their power when higher wisdom carves new laws within you.
The practical path is clear: declare void your false records, affirm your new reality, act as if it already exists, and surround yourself with witnesses who believe.
But what of communication, the bridge between inner mastery and outer influence. Reactive speech signals weakness, while initiating topics and steering conversations signals leadership. Information dumping overwhelms minds, but two key points wrapped in metaphor ignite understanding.
Nervous tones, rushed words, defensive replies, these betray a mind not yet mastered.
Instead, posture steady, pace controlled, voice aligned, these are the silent signals of inner command. Master your inner world first and watch as life itself bends to your command.
Imagine walking into a room where every eye silently judges you within 3 seconds.
This thin slice of perception, your posture, your voice, your gaze, becomes the invisible script that defines your authority. A spine straightened like a pillar, shoulders back as if carrying invisible armor, signals competence before a single word escapes your lips. But what happens when your words rush, tangled in filler sounds, betraying the storm of anxiety within? Listeners instantly sense insecurity, as if the foundation of your presence were built on sand instead of stone. The mystery lies here: why do calm, measured pauses command more respect than torrents of data and endless explanations? Because silence, when deliberate, becomes a weapon sharper than words, carving authority into the air itself. Consider the negotiator who speaks in concise strokes, each phrase like a painter's brush, purposeful, leaving no wasted motion. Deals close faster, respect rises higher, because clarity is magnetic while clutter repels. Yet authority is not aggression, it is calmness, a magnetic presence that makes others feel safe enough to follow. Authenticity is the secret glue. When your emotions, words, and gestures align, trust blooms like spring after winter. But when they fracture, smiling while tense, speaking boldly while trembling, the audience senses the crack and withdraws. Boundaries, calmly enforced, are the fortress walls of self-respect. They tell the world what is sacred and what is forbidden. Competence, proven through results rather than boastful noise, becomes the undeniable evidence that others cannot ignore. And in the end, the most overlooked act of mastery is the closing statement, a brief, self-affirming echo that seals respect. Every dialogue, then, is no longer a battlefield of uncertainty but an arena of presence, influence, and credibility. Master your inner world first, and the outer world bends, not through force, but through the quiet gravity of self-control.
Imagine walking into a room where every eye silently measures your competence, your confidence, your trustworthiness, all within seconds.
First impressions are not casual, they are verdicts carved into memory, shaping whether doors open or remain locked forever. Authority begins not with loud declarations but with the quiet discipline of boundaries, knowing what you will allow and what you will refuse. When you calmly enforce those boundaries, you broadcast self-respect, and others instinctively mirror that respect back to you. Competence is not proven by boasting but by results, like a craftsman whose work speaks louder than his words. True confidence is intellectual, not arrogant. It knows its limits yet defends its convictions with clarity and evidence. Paradoxically, admitting mistakes, strategic vulnerability, can strengthen authority, because honesty is a rare currency in human exchange. Persuasion is not manipulation, it is the art of aligning your goals with another's genuine interests, forging trust instead of suspicion. Research shows people decide with their hearts first, then justify with their minds, so the wise persuader speaks to emotion before logic. Stories are the vessels of persuasion, carrying emotions like rivers carry life, making abstract ideas unforgettable. A powerful story introduces a relatable character, paints vivid sensory detail, and shows cause and effect leading to a desired outcome. Objections are not enemies but invitations: listen, validate, and adapt, and resistance transforms into cooperation. Silence itself becomes a weapon: confidence pauses, emphasis pauses, invitation silences, all shaping the rhythm of influence. To sit with tension, to let silence breathe, is to command the unseen currents of dialogue. Social calibration, the ability to adjust tone without losing values, is the invisible armor that lets authority travel across any battlefield. Rapport is not mimicry but authenticity, curiosity, expertise, reliability, woven together like threads of trust. And when urgency is real, time slipping, opportunities fading, it awakens action without deceit. Mastering your inner world means mastering these signals, stories, silences, and boundaries, because life bends to those who bend themselves first.
Silence is not emptiness, it is a canvas where truth paints itself, revealing hidden motivations that words often conceal.
When we pause before reacting, we break the chain of escalation, transforming confrontation into reflection and wisdom. Sometimes the most powerful negotiation tool is discomfort itself, letting tension linger until the other party chooses resolution. At the end of dialogue, reflection silence becomes a mirror, ensuring no loose ends remain and mutual understanding is secured. Strategic silence, when carried with confidence, feels less like avoidance and more like mastery of the unseen currents of conversation. Those who master silence stand apart, listening deeply, speaking less, and honoring the sacred space between words. Social calibration is the art of reading invisible rules, hierarchy, culture, emotion, and adjusting tone like a musician tuning strings. Effective communicators never wear one mask, they shift styles across contexts, knowing that adaptability is the true language of influence. Persuasion begins not with speaking, but with listening, understanding the other's world before offering your own. Situational awareness is the compass of communication, guiding us through hierarchy, emotional climates, and cultural landscapes. Every gesture, pause, and tone is a clue. Body language and silence often speak louder than words themselves. Audience analysis is not optional, it is survival, because analytical minds crave logic while relational souls hunger for story. Power dynamics shape every exchange. Formal authority demands clarity and respect, while informal influence thrives on patience and trust. Misjudging power is costly. Casualness with superiors feels like disrespect, indecision with peers feels like weakness. Cultural competence is the passport to influence, for every group has its own unwritten laws of speech and silence. The leader who adapts communication across contexts builds bridges, while the one who clings to one style builds walls.
And so, mastering your inner world, silence, calibration, awareness, is not just communication, it is control of life itself.
This journey has shown us that the deepest power lies not in louder voices, but in wiser pauses. If this changed your perspective, hit subscribe, because the next chapter will take us even deeper into the art of mastering life.